You have 30 seconds to tell me why I shouldn't report you to the authorities right now. The words came out of my mouth steady and cold, but my heart was hammering against my ribs like it was trying to escape. I was standing in the aisle of Flight 447, Tokyo to Dubai, staring down at a man whose neck I had just broken. His body lay twisted on the floor between business-class seats, eyes wide with shock, mouth open but no sound coming out. Around us, passengers were screaming, some standing, some frozen in their seats, all of them staring at me like I had just torn open a door mid-flight and sucked half the cabin into the sky. But let me ask you something before we go any further. Have you ever been pushed so far that your body just took over? That moment when your brain shuts off and your training kicks in, and suddenly you're watching yourself from the outside, wondering who that person is? That's what happened to me 37,000 feet above the ground. And it changed everything. My name is Elena Ward. I'm 28 years old, and up until 3 minutes ago, I was just a flight attendant trying to make it through another shift. Now I'm the woman who broke a Mafia boss's neck in front of 200 witnesses. This is the story of how one moment of instinct turned my quiet, exhausting life into something I never saw coming. Something that would test every part of me I thought I'd buried years ago. But let me start from the beginning because you need to understand who I was before that flight. You need to know what I was fighting for. Hey, I hope you're doing well, wherever you are right now. Maybe you're listening to this during your commute, or while you're cooking dinner, or lying in bed trying to shut your brain off for the night. I don't know what the weather's like where you are, but here's what I can tell you. This story is going to stay with you. It's going to make you feel things you didn't expect to feel. And I promise you, by the end, you're going to understand why some moments change us forever. So stick with me. Hit that like button if you're already hooked. Subscribe if you want more stories like this one. And drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, because I love knowing who's out there listening. Now, let me take you back to who I was 6 months ago. I was a widow raising a 6-year-old boy named Thomas on my own. My husband died 4 years earlier in a car accident that I still don't like talking about. The kind of sudden, brutal loss that splits your life into before and after. Before, I was a different person. I smiled more. I slept through the night. I believed the world was mostly fair. After, I learned to survive. Thomas has a rare sensory processing syndrome that makes the world feel too loud, too bright, too much. Unexpected sounds send him into panic attacks. Unfamiliar textures make his skin crawl. Touch from strangers can trigger a meltdown that lasts hours. Most days, getting him dressed and fed and to his therapy appointments feels like climbing a mountain with no gear and no map. I worked as a flight attendant because the pay was decent and the schedule let me be home between trips. I picked up extra shifts when I could. I smiled at passengers who treated me like furniture. I apologized when they spilled things on me. I swallowed my pride 100 times a day because I had a son who needed specialized therapy that cost more than most people's rent. My phone wallpaper was a photo of Thomas hugging my leg at the park, his face pressed against my hip, eyes unfocused but smiling. That smile kept me going through every degrading interaction, every sleepless night, every moment when I wanted to scream at the unfairness of it all. I used to be different, though. Before Thomas was born, before I met my husband, I spent 3 years in the military. I wasn't special forces or anything like that, but I learned hand-to-hand combat. I learned how to stay calm when someone was screaming in your face. I learned that your body can do things your mind doesn't think are possible if you train it right. I left the military when I got pregnant, started a quieter life, put those skills in a box and buried them deep because they didn't fit the person I was trying to be. Until that flight. I clocked in at Tokyo Narita at 6 p.m., exhausted before my shift even started. Thomas had been up most of the night before, overwhelmed by the neighbor's dog barking. I'd held him while he cried, rocked him until his breathing steadied, then stayed awake watching him sleep because I was terrified he'd wake up the second I closed my eyes. I tucked my phone away, took a deep breath, and walked onto the plane like I always did. Smile in place. Shoulders back, ready to be whatever people needed me to be for the next 14 hours. The cabin was nearly full. Families heading home from vacation. Business travelers already buried in their laptops. A few solo passengers scattered throughout. I moved through the aisles doing pre-flight checks, helping an elderly woman stow her bag, kneeling down to comfort a crying toddler whose ears were already hurting. Then I got to row 2, business class, and my night took a turn. Seat 2A held a man who looked like he'd walked out of a magazine spread for dangerous elegance. Mid-30s, dark hair that fell naturally away from his face, strong jaw shadowed with stubble, expensive clothes that fit like they were made for him. His hands rested on the armrests, and I noticed intricate tattoos curling up from his wrists. He was watching me with an intensity that made my skin prickle, but his expression was cold, amused, like he was watching something entertaining, but beneath him, I'd seen men like him before. Rich, powerful, bored. The kind who treated service workers like props in their personal theater. I approached with my standard smile. "Sir, we're preparing for takeoff. I need you to raise your seat back to the upright position." He didn't move, just kept watching me with those dark eyes. I waited, kept my voice polite. "Sir, it's a safety requirement." He leaned forward slowly, and when he spoke, it was in perfect Japanese. Fluid and casual, like he was sharing a joke with a friend. "You serve me. Don't pretend you have authority." The words hit like a slap. Around us, a few passengers glanced over. An older Japanese couple in row 3 looked uncomfortable. A businessman across the aisle suddenly became very interested in his phone. I felt my face get hot, but I kept my composure. Breathed through my nose. Maintained eye contact. Stayed steady. "Sir, this is a safety regulation. I need you to comply." His smile widened. He said something else in Japanese, something I didn't fully catch but recognized as mocking from his tone. Then he did something that flipped a switch I didn't know was still armed. He reached out and poked my forehead. "Once. Light. Testing. Twice. Harder. Dismissive. 3 times. Hard enough to snap my head back slightly. And in that third poke, something inside me broke. Not broke like shattered. Broke like a dam giving way. My body moved before my brain caught up. Years of training I'd buried came flooding back in one crystallized moment of pure instinct. My right hand shot out and grabbed his wrist mid-motion. My left hand braced his shoulder. I twisted my hips, hooked my leg behind his, and used his forward momentum against him. The motion was so smooth it felt like dancing, like muscle memory from another lifetime taking control. There was a crack, sharp and sickening. He hit the floor hard, body twisted, neck bent at an angle that made my stomach drop. The cabin erupted. A woman screamed. Someone shouted, "Oh my God," in English. The elderly Japanese couple stood up, so fast their tray tables rattled. The businessman across the aisle was already recording on his phone. I stood there, hands still extended, staring down at what I'd done. The man on the floor was conscious, but his eyes were wide with shock and something I'd never seen before. Disbelief. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. His hands twitched but didn't move. My training kicked in again, different this time. Assessment mode. His chest was rising and falling. He was breathing. His eyes were tracking movement. Not dead. But something was very wrong. "Call for medical assistance," I heard myself say. My voice sounded far away. Possible spinal injury. The cabin erupted into chaos. My supervisor came running from the back. The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom, asking what was happening. Passengers were standing now, some trying to help, some just staring. And through it all, the man on the floor kept his eyes locked on mine. Not angry, not afraid. Something else I couldn't name. The next 6 hours were a blur. The pilot diverted to the nearest airport. Medical teams boarded the plane. Police questioned me while passengers gave statements. Some said I attacked him unprovoked. Others said they saw him touch me first. The videos started circulating on social media before we even landed. They took him away on a stretcher, neck immobilized, still conscious, but unable to move anything below his shoulders. Temporary paralysis, I heard someone say. The neck wasn't broken in a way that would kill him, but the trauma to his spinal cord had shut his body down. I was detained. Questioned for hours. My supervisor looked at me like I was a stranger. The airline's legal team showed up with grim faces. But here's the thing nobody understood. I wasn't sorry. Standing there in that interrogation room, exhausted and terrified and possibly about to lose everything, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. I felt like myself again. Not the woman who apologized for existing. Not the mother who was drowning in medical bills and sleepless nights. Not the widow who'd forgotten what it felt like to take up space. I felt like the person I used to be, the one who knew how to fight back. They released me after 18 hours. No charges filed yet, pending investigation. The airline suspended me indefinitely. My face was all over the news. Flight attendant assaults passenger in some headlines. Woman defends herself against harassment in others. I took a taxi home in yesterday's uniform, makeup smudged, body aching. Thomas was with my neighbor, Mrs. Kim, who watched him when I had overnight flights. When I walked through her door, he looked up from his coloring book and his whole face lit up.
Manga.
He ran to me and wrapped his arms around my legs, pressing his face against my hip. His safe person. His anchor. I knelt down and held him tight, breathing in the smell of his hair, letting his weight ground me. Mrs. Kim handed me my phone with a worried expression. Elena, the news. I know. Are you okay? I looked down at Thomas, who was already pulling me toward his coloring book to show me what he'd made. A purple dinosaur with 17 legs. I don't know yet, I said honestly. That night, after I got Thomas fed and bathed and finally asleep, I sat on the couch and opened my laptop. The videos were everywhere. Dozens of angles from passenger phones. Me grabbing the man's wrist.
The twist.
His body hitting the floor. The comments were split down the middle. Half calling me a hero. Half calling me dangerous. But one comment stopped me cold. That's Lorenzo Vieri. He runs half the underground trade routes in Southern Europe.
She's dead.
She just doesn't know it yet. I read it 3 times. Then I started searching. Lorenzo Vieri. 34 years old. Suspected links to organized crime across 7 countries. Never convicted because witnesses had a habit of disappearing. Wealthy beyond measure. Dangerous beyond comprehension. And I'd broken his neck in front of 200 people. I closed the laptop and walked to Thomas's room. He was sleeping peacefully, one arm wrapped around his favorite stuffed elephant. So small. So fragile. So completely dependent on me. What had I done? But here's what I didn't know then, sitting in that dark apartment, terrified and exhilarated and wondering if men in black cars were already on their way. Breaking Lorenzo Vieri's neck wasn't the end of anything. It was the beginning. The next 3 weeks were a special kind of hell. The airline put me on unpaid leave while they conducted their investigation. My union rep, a tired woman named Patricia with kind eyes and zero optimism, told me to prepare for termination. The videos had gone viral. Millions of views. Think pieces about violence and self-defense, and whether I was a hero or a menace. My face everywhere. I stopped reading the comments after the first few days. Stopped watching the news. Stopped checking social media altogether. I focused on Thomas. On keeping our routine as normal as possible while my world collapsed around us. Morning therapy sessions 3 times a week at the Riverside Center, a specialized clinic that cost $1,800 a month even with insurance. Thomas worked with Dr. Sarah Chin, a patient woman who understood that progress looked different for every child. She never rushed him, never pushed too hard, just met him where he was and helped him find ways to navigate a world that felt too overwhelming. I'd sit in the waiting room during his sessions, watching other parents scroll through their phones or chat quietly. Nobody recognized me there, thank God. Or, if they did, they were kind enough to pretend they didn't. The medical bills were piling up. I'd been living paycheck to paycheck before, juggling credit cards and payment plans. Now, with no income, I was drowning. I started selling things. My husband's old watch that I'd kept in a drawer. Some jewelry. A vintage record player we'd gotten as a wedding gift. It wasn't enough. I applied for other jobs. Retail. Administrative work. Anything that would let me keep Thomas's therapy schedule. But every interview ended the same way. They'd look me up online, see the videos, and suddenly the position was filled. Nobody wanted to hire the woman who'd broken a mafia boss's neck on an airplane. Mrs. Kim helped when she could, brought over meals, watched Thomas for free when I had to meet with lawyers. She never asked questions I couldn't answer, just squeezed my hand and told me it would work out. I wanted to believe her. 3 weeks after the incident, I was leaving Thomas's therapy session when everything shifted again. It was a Thursday afternoon.
Cool but sunny.
Thomas held my hand as we walked through the parking lot, tired from his session but calm.
He done well today.
Dr. Chen said he was making real progress with unexpected sounds. Small victories that felt enormous. I was thinking about what to make for dinner with the $12 left in my checking account when I saw the car.
Black. Sleek.
Expensive in a way that didn't belong in this parking lot full of minivans and aging sedans. It was parked 3 spaces from mine. My body went cold. That old military training kicked in again. Assess the threat. Find the exits. Protect the asset. Thomas was the asset. I picked him up even though he was getting too big for it. Held him against my hip. Kept walking toward my car, keys already in my hand, sharp end out like they'd taught us in self-defense. The back door of the black car opened. A man stepped out. Lorenzo Vieri. He moved stiffly, carefully, like every motion hurt. A thin scar ran along the side of his neck where they'd operated. His clothes were still expensive, but less polished than on the plane. Dark jeans. A simple black shirt. No jewelry except a watch that probably cost more than my car. No bodyguards that I could see. Just him. We locked eyes across the parking lot. Thomas felt my tension and wrapped his arms tighter around my neck.
Nana.
It's okay, baby, I whispered. But my voice shook. Lorenzo raised both hands slowly. A gesture of peace. Or mockery. I couldn't tell which. I just want to talk, he said. His voice was rough, like speaking still hurt. Stay away from us. I fumbled with my car door, trying to get it open while holding Thomas.
Please. That word stopped me. Please.
Said with something that almost sounded like sincerity. I turned back to face him, keeping my car between us. What do you want? He took a careful step forward. Winced. His hand went to his neck unconsciously. To understand. Understand what? Why you didn't apologize? The question caught me off guard. What? In the hospital. During the investigation. In all the interviews. He took another slow step. Everyone expected you to apologize.
To cry.
To beg for forgiveness. You never did. I defended myself. You broke my neck. You assaulted me first. Something flickered in his eyes. Not anger. Something else. I know. Thomas was getting heavier in my arms. He tucked his face against my shoulder, overwhelmed by the stranger and the tension he could feel radiating off me. I need to get my son home, I said. Lorenzo's gaze shifted to Thomas. Really looked at him for the first time. I saw him notice the way Thomas hid his face. The tight grip of his hands on my shirt. The way his body curled into mine like I was the only safe thing in the world. How old is he? That's none of your business. 6? 7? I didn't answer. Lorenzo reached into his pocket. I tensed, ready to throw Thomas into the car and put myself between them. But he pulled out something small, wooden, hand-carved. A bird. Detailed and delicate. Wings spread mid-flight. I made this, he said quietly. In the hospital. Had a lot of time and not much else to do. He set it on the hood of my car and stepped back. I'm not here for revenge, Elena. Hearing my name in his voice made my skin prickle. Then why are you here? He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different. Uncertain in a way that didn't match the dangerous man from the plane. You're the first person who's ever stopped me. Stopped you from what? From being the person I thought I had to be. Before I could process that, he turned and walked back to his car. Moved carefully like an old man, even though he was barely older than me.
Got in.
The engine started. He rolled down the window. The bird is for your son.
Not a bribe.
Not a threat. Just something I thought he might like. Then he drove away. I stood there for 5 full minutes, Thomas heavy in my arms, staring at the carved wooden bird on my car hood. That night, after Thomas was asleep with the bird clutched in his hand because he'd been fascinated by the smooth texture and intricate details, I did what I should have done 3 weeks ago. I researched Lorenzo very properly. Not just the criminal allegations.
The whole story.
He was born in Naples to a family already deep in organized crime. His father ran protection rackets. His mother died when he was 8. Overdose, though some articles suggested it wasn't accidental. Lorenzo took over his father's operations at 23 when the old man was killed in a power struggle. He'd expanded the business, made it more sophisticated, less visible. He moved money through legitimate companies, owned restaurants and shipping companies and real estate, the kind of criminal empire that looked respectable from the outside. But here's what caught my attention. 6 months ago, he'd funded a new wing at a children's hospital in Rome. Anonymous donation. 10 million euros. The press found out anyway. When they asked him why, he'd said something cryptic about trying to balance scales. 2 years before that, he'd personally shut down a human trafficking operation that was using one of his shipping routes without permission. Turned over evidence to the police. 3 men went to prison. He wasn't just a criminal.
He was complicated.
And for some reason, he tracked me down to give my son a hand-carved bird. Over the next 2 weeks, Lorenzo showed up 3 more times. Never threatening. Never pushing. Just there. The second time was at the grocery store. I was comparing prices on pasta, trying to figure out how to make $8 stretch to dinner, when I felt someone watching me. Looked up and saw him 2 aisles over, pretending to examine cereal boxes. Our eyes met. He nodded once. Didn't approach. Just acknowledged my presence and left. The third time was outside Thomas's therapy center again. Different day. Different time. He was sitting in his car, watching the building. When he saw me, he got out and handed me an envelope. What's this? Information about a support group for parents with children who have sensory processing issues. Meets twice a month.
Free.
I thought you might want to know. I stared at him. Why do you know about sensory processing issues? I've been reading. He said it matter of fact, like it was normal for a mafia boss to research childhood developmental disorders.
Why?
Because your son has it. And I wanted to understand. He left before I could respond. The fourth time was the one that changed things. I was leaving a meeting with my lawyer, a public defender, who was helping me pro bono because she believed my case was clear self-defense. The meeting hadn't gone well. The airline was pushing for assault charges. Lorenzo's lawyers were staying neutral, which surprised everyone, but the airline wanted to make an example of me. I walked out into the rain without an umbrella, too tired to care that I was getting soaked. Lorenzo was waiting by my car. You need to stop following me, I said. No energy left for fear. I'm not following you. I'm trying to help you. I don't need your help. Your lawyer is out of her depth. The airline has a team of corporate attorneys who will bury her in paperwork and precedent. You need someone better. I can't afford someone better. I can. I laughed. Actually laughed. You want to pay for my legal defense? Against charges that came from me breaking your neck? Yes. Why? He stepped closer. Rain was soaking through his shirt, but he didn't seem to notice. Because you were right to do what you did. Because I've spent my whole life surrounded by people who are too afraid to stop me. And because when I woke up in that hospital unable to move, the first thing I thought wasn't revenge. It was respect. That's insane. Probably. We stood there in the rain, staring at each other. I should have walked away. Should have told him to leave me alone. Should have protected myself and my son from whatever complicated mess this was becoming. Instead, I heard myself ask, "What do you want from me?" Nothing. Everyone wants something. I want you to let me help. That's all. And if I say no? He smiled, small and sad. Then I'll stop showing up. I'll leave you alone. But your lawyer will still lose, and you'll still end up with a criminal record, and your son will still lose his therapy, because you won't be able to afford it anymore. The truth of that hit like a physical blow.
He was right.
I was drowning. Pride wasn't going to save me. One condition, I said. Name it. You stay away from my son. Something flickered across his face. Hurt, maybe. But he nodded. Agreed. That's how it started. The strangest alliance I never wanted. Lorenzo hired me a real lawyer. Marcus Brennan, a shark in an expensive suit who looked at my case and smiled like it was Christmas morning. He got the assault charges dropped in 2 weeks. Self-defense. Clear video evidence. Passenger testimony about Lorenzo touching me first. The airline tried to fire me anyway. Marcus filed a wrongful termination suit so fast their legal team didn't know what hit them. 3 weeks later, I had my job back with back pay and a formal apology. I should have been grateful. I was. But I also felt like I'd made a deal with the devil and was still waiting to find out the price. Lorenzo kept his distance, like he'd promised. But he found other ways to help. An anonymous donation to Thomas's therapy center that made his sessions free for the next year. A grocery delivery that appeared on my doorstep with no note. Just exactly the things I always bought plus some extras I couldn't normally afford. A new car in my parking spot one morning. Used but reliable. The title already in my name. A note on the dashboard that said, "Your old one had a brake problem. This one is safer." I should have refused it all. Should have maintained boundaries. Should have been smarter. But I was so tired of drowning. So I let him help. And tried not to think about what it meant. 6 weeks after the plane incident, I finally agreed to meet him for coffee. Neutral ground. Public place.
Daytime.
Mrs. Kim watching Thomas. I chose a busy cafe downtown where I could see all the exits. Arrived 15 minutes early and positioned myself with my back to the wall. Lorenzo showed up exactly on time. He'd gotten a haircut. The scar on his neck was fading, but still visible. He moved easier now, but I could still see the lingering stiffness. He sat down across from me and ordered black coffee. Nothing else. "Thank you for meeting me," he said. "Thank you for the lawyer. And the donations. And the car." "You're welcome." We sat in awkward silence. I studied him in the daylight. Without the expensive suits and the airplane context, he looked different. Younger. More human. "Can I ask you something?" I said. "Anything."
Why did you poke me that day?
"On the plane. What were you trying to prove?" He was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was low. "I was testing you." "Testing me for what?" "To see if you'd break. Everyone breaks eventually if you push hard enough." That's what I learned growing up. People are either predators or prey. And you have to establish which one you are immediately, or someone else will decide for you. That's a horrible way to live. It kept me alive. It made you cruel. He flinched like I'd slapped him. But he didn't argue. "Yes." "So what changed?" "You didn't break.
You stopped me."
And when I woke up in that hospital, I had a lot of time to think about what kind of man pushes a woman who's just trying to do her job. What kind of man treats service workers like they're beneath him? What kind of man I'd become? He looked up and met my eyes. I didn't like the answer. Something in my chest loosened. Not forgiveness. Not trust. But understanding, maybe. "I'm trying to be better," he said. "I don't know if I can be. But I want to try." "Why tell me this?" "Because you're the only person who's ever treated me like I was just a man. Not a boss. Not a threat. Not someone to fear or impress. You saw me doing something wrong and you stopped me. Simple as that. I broke your neck. You held me accountable. No one's done that since I was a child." We talked for 2 hours. About his childhood in Naples. About my time in the military. About what it was like raising Thomas alone. About the weight of trying to be good in a world that punished goodness. He didn't try to justify his past. Didn't make excuses. Just told me the truth about who he was and who he was trying to become. When we stood to leave, he handed me another envelope. "What's this?" "Cooking lessons. There's a class downtown that teaches basic skills." I signed up. Thought maybe you'd want to join me. I stared at him. "Why would I want to take cooking lessons with you?" He smiled. genuinely smiled, and it transformed his whole face. Because you once told the investigator that men like me probably can't even fry an egg. And you were right. I want to prove I can learn. Despite everything, I laughed. That's the weirdest reason I've ever heard. Is that a yes? I should have said no. Should have maintained distance. Should have protected myself. But something about his honesty, his vulnerability, his genuine desire to be better made me want to give him a chance. One class, I said. We'll see how it goes. His smile got bigger. One class. That night, I tucked Thomas into bed with his wooden bird and sat on the edge of his mattress. Mama happy? He asked. His words were careful, hard-won through years of speech therapy. Yeah, baby. Mama's happy. Good. He yawned and closed his eyes. Love you. Love you too. But lying in my own bed later, staring at the ceiling, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. And underneath it, something more dangerous. The first stirrings of trust. I didn't know it then, but that trust was about to be tested in ways I couldn't imagine. Because Lorenzo's past wasn't done with him. And getting close to me meant pulling me and Thomas into a world where predators didn't just test you. They destroyed you. The cooking class was ridiculous. 12 strangers in a commercial kitchen, all of us wearing matching aprons, trying to dice onions without crying. The instructor was a cheerful woman named Diane who spoke in exclamation points and acted like making marinara sauce was the pinnacle of human achievement. Lorenzo stood at the station next to mine, focused with an intensity that would have been more appropriate for defusing a bomb. He held the knife like it might attack him. His first attempt at dicing an onion resulted in chunks so uneven they looked like abstract art. I couldn't help it. I laughed. He looked up, startled. Then he saw my face, and something softened in his expression. I told you I couldn't cook. That's not cooking. That's assault on a vegetable. Show me how to do it right then. I moved to his station and demonstrated the proper knife grip. How to curl your fingers. How to use a rocking motion. He watched carefully, then tried again. Better this time. Still not great, but better. Like this? He asked. Better. Keep practicing. Diane came by and beamed at us. You two make such a lovely couple. How long have you been married? We're not together, I said quickly.
Oh.
Diane looked between us, confused. My mistake. You just have such good chemistry. After she walked away, Lorenzo glanced at me. Do we? Do we what? Have good chemistry. I focused very hard on my onions. I wouldn't know. But the truth was I did know. I'd felt it during coffee. Felt it now in the way we moved around each other in the small kitchen space. An awareness that made my skin feel too warm. I ignored it. I had to. The class ended with all of us sitting down to eat what we'd made. My pasta was decent. Lorenzo's was edible. Barely. He took a bite and made a face. This is terrible. It's your first try. Give yourself credit. You're being too nice to me. Someone has to be. He set down his fork and looked at me seriously. Elena, can I ask you something personal? That depends on what it is. Thomas's father. You said he died. Was it sudden? The question landed like a stone in my chest. I hadn't talked about David in years. Not really. Just the basic facts when I had to explain why I was a single mother. But something about Lorenzo's genuine curiosity, his careful tone, made me answer honestly.
Car accident.
4 years ago, a drunk driver ran a red light. David died instantly. I was at home with Thomas when the police showed up. I'm sorry. Everyone's sorry. Sorry doesn't bring him back.
No.
But it means we recognize the weight of what you lost. I looked at him, really looked, saw genuine compassion in his eyes. Why do you care? Because understanding what shaped you helps me understand why you did what you did. On the plane, you weren't just defending yourself. You were defending the life you've built for your son. The life you fought to maintain after losing everything once already. He was right. I hadn't thought about it that way, but he was right. You're more perceptive than I expected, I admitted. People rarely expect depth from men like me. It's how I've survived. Let them underestimate you. We finished our mediocre pasta and walked out together. It was early evening, the sky turning purple. Lorenzo walked me to my car, the one he'd given me, and I felt that awareness again. That chemistry Diane had noticed. Same time next week, he asked. You're actually going to keep taking cooking classes? I made a commitment. I keep my commitments. Something about the way he said it made me believe him. Okay. Same time next week. He smiled, started to walk away, then turned back.
Elena.
Yeah. Thank you for giving me a chance. I know I don't deserve it.
No.
You don't. But everyone deserves a chance to be better than their worst moment. I drove home feeling lighter than I had in months. Mrs. Kim was watching a movie with Thomas when I got there. He ran to me immediately, wrapping his arms around my legs.
Mama.
We watched dinosaurs.
Did you?
Was it good? So good. His enthusiasm was infectious. He'd been having more good days lately. The therapy was working. The stability was helping. After Mrs. Kim left and Thomas was in bed, I stood in my kitchen making tea and thought about Lorenzo's question. About David. About the life I'd lost and the one I'd built from the ruins. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Thank you for tonight. You made me feel like a normal person. That's rare.
Elle.
I stared at it for a long time before responding. You're welcome. See you next week. 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. Then appeared again. Looking forward to it. I set my phone down and told myself this was just friendship. Just two people helping each other be better. Nothing more. I was lying to myself, and I knew it. The next 3 weeks fell into a strange rhythm. Cooking classes every Tuesday. Coffee on Thursdays when I wasn't flying. Long conversations about everything and nothing. He told me about growing up in Naples, about watching his father rule through fear and deciding that was the only way to survive. I told him about my military training, about meeting David at a bar near the base, about the shock of becoming a widow at 24. Lorenzo started showing up at the park where I took Thomas on weekends. Not intrusively. He just happened to be there, sitting on a bench with a book. Thomas noticed him the 3rd time. That man again, Thomas said, pointing. Yeah, baby. That's Lorenzo. Friend. Such a simple question with such a complicated answer.
Yeah.
He's a friend. Thomas nodded, satisfied with that explanation. He went back to playing in the sandbox while I watched Lorenzo from across the playground. He wasn't looking at his book. He was watching Thomas with an expression I couldn't quite read. After a while, Thomas's ball rolled toward Lorenzo's bench. Thomas froze, overwhelmed by the prospect of approaching a stranger. I started to get up, but Lorenzo moved first. He picked up the ball and walked slowly toward Thomas. Knelt down carefully, still moving like his neck hurt sometimes. Held out the ball. Thomas looked at me. I nodded. He reached out and took it. Thank you, Thomas whispered. You're welcome, Lorenzo said gently. Is that a dinosaur on your shirt? Thomas looked down at his t-shirt and nodded enthusiastically. Stegosaurus. That's a good dinosaur.
Strong.
Protective. Like Mama. Lorenzo glanced at me, something warm in his eyes.
Yes.
Exactly like Mama. Thomas smiled and ran back to his sandbox. Lorenzo stood and walked over to where I was sitting. You're good with him, I said. I'm trying. Kids make me nervous. So much potential. So easy to damage if you're not careful. Sounds like you're speaking from experience. He sat down next to me, leaving appropriate distance. My father wasn't gentle. Believed children needed to be hardened early. Made strong through pain. That's not strength. That's trauma. I know that now.
Didn't know it then.
We watched Thomas play in comfortable silence. Other parents chatted nearby. Dogs barked in the distance. Normal Saturday morning in the park. Except nothing about this was normal. Elena, Lorenzo said quietly. I need to tell you something. The seriousness in his tone made me tense.
What?
My past. The business I run. There are people who aren't happy about the changes I've been making. What kind of changes? I've been shutting down the more violent operations. Refusing jobs that hurt civilians. trying to make things more legitimate. Some of my associates think I'm going soft. Are you? He looked at me.
Yes.
And I don't regret it. But it's making my position unstable. There are men who want to remove me, take over, go back to the old ways. My stomach dropped. Are you in danger? I'm always in danger. That's the life. But lately it's gotten worse. And now that I've been seen with you, multiple times, in public.
He paused.
You might be in danger too. I should have been terrified. Should have told him to stay away. Should have protected Thomas from whatever mess this was. But something in me had changed over these weeks. I wasn't the same woman who'd been drowning in grief and medical bills. Lorenzo had helped me remember who I used to be.
Strong.
Capable. Someone who didn't run from hard things. What are you saying? I asked. I'm saying I care about you. About Thomas. And I need you to be careful. Watch for cars that follow you. Notice strangers who appear multiple times. Trust your instincts. Lorenzo, you're scaring me. Good. Fear keeps you alert. I need you alert. He pulled something from his pocket. A small device. This is a panic button. You press it, and it sends your location directly to my phone. I'll come. No matter where I am or what I'm doing. I'll come. I took it with shaking hands. This is insane. This whole thing is insane. I know. And if you want me to disappear from your life, I will.
Right now.
I'll make sure you're protected from a distance, but I'll stay away. You just have to say the word. I looked at the panic button. Then at Thomas, happily oblivious in his sandbox. Then at Lorenzo, this complicated man who'd gone from my nightmare to something I couldn't quite define. I don't want you to disappear, I heard myself say. You sure?
No.
But I'm saying it anyway. He smiled, sad and grateful at the same time. Then we do this carefully. You tell me if anything feels wrong. You don't take chances. And you remember that whatever happens, you and Thomas come first. Always. What about you? I've been taking care of myself for a long time. I'll be fine. But he wouldn't be fine. I could see it in his eyes. The weight he carried. The enemies closing in. The impossible position of trying to be better in a world that punished change. That night, after Thomas was asleep, I sat on my couch holding the panic button and wondering what I was doing. Getting close to a man whose past could destroy us. Letting him into our lives when I should have kept every door locked. But I also thought about his gentleness with Thomas. His genuine desire to learn and grow. The way he looked at me like I was someone worth knowing, not just someone to serve him. I thought about chemistry and second chances, and the terrifying possibility that I was falling for someone I had no business falling for. My phone buzzed. Lorenzo. I know I'm asking too much. But thank you for trusting me anyway. Sleep well, Elena. I typed and deleted 3 different responses before settling on something simple. You too. 2 days later, everything fell apart. I was working a short flight to Los Angeles. Normal routine. Smiling at passengers. Serving drinks. Helping with luggage. The flight was smooth. Nothing eventful. Until we landed, and I checked my phone. 17 missed calls from Mrs. Kim. My heart stopped. I called her back immediately. She answered on the first ring. Elena, thank God. Thomas is fine. He's fine. But there was an incident. What incident? My voice came out sharp. Other flight attendants looked over. A man tried to approach him at the park. I was pushing him on the swing, and this man walked up and asked if Thomas wanted candy. I stepped between them and the man left, but Elena, something about it felt wrong. What did he look like?
Tall. Broad.
Dark jacket. Sunglasses. He had an accent. Eastern European, maybe. My blood turned to ice. Did you call the police?
Yes.
They took a report. Said they'd patrol the area. But Elena, I'm scared. This didn't feel random. Where are you now? At your apartment with Thomas. I locked all the doors. We're not leaving until you get here. I'm coming. I'll be there in 2 hours. Don't open the door for anyone. I hung up and stood there in the airport corridor, shaking. Lorenzo had warned me, and I hadn't taken it seriously enough. I grabbed the panic button from my bag and pressed it. 3 minutes later, my phone rang. Lorenzo. What's wrong? His voice was sharp. Alert. I told him everything. He was quiet for exactly 3 seconds. I'm sending security to your apartment right now. 2 men. They'll stay outside your door until you get home. Don't worry about what your neighbors think. Just let them do their job. Lorenzo, what's happening? I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out.
Get home.
Lock your doors. I'll come by tonight after I handle something. Handle what? Better you don't know. Trust me. He hung up before I could argue. The 2-hour drive home was the longest of my life. I kept imagining worst-case scenarios. Someone taking Thomas, hurting Mrs. Kim, destroying everything because I'd gotten close to a man I should have stayed away from. When I finally pulled into my apartment complex, I saw them immediately. 2 men in dark clothes standing outside my door. Professional. Alert. The kind of men who'd done security work before. One of them nodded as I approached. Ms. Ward. We've been here since Mr. Vieri called. No one's approached. Your son is safe. I nearly collapsed with relief. Inside, Mrs. Kim and Thomas were sitting on the couch watching cartoons. Thomas looked up when I came in.
Nganga.
I swept him into my arms and held him so tight he squirmed. I'm here, baby. Everything's okay. Mrs. Kim looked exhausted. I'm so sorry I scared you. I had a bad feeling. You did exactly right. Thank you for protecting him. After Mrs. Kim left, I triple-checked all the locks, made sure the windows were secure, kept Thomas close while we made dinner, and went through our night routine. He could feel my tension.
Mama's got it.
Mama's just being careful. The men outside? They're friends. They're making sure we're safe. He accepted this explanation the way children do, trusting that adults knew what they were doing. I wished I had his faith. At 9 p.m., there was a knock at the door. I looked through the peephole and saw Lorenzo. The security guards were still there, but they'd stepped back to give him space. I opened the door. He looked terrible. Tired. Stressed. A bruise forming on his jaw. Are you okay? I asked.
I've fine.
Can I come in? I let him in and closed the door. He stood in my small living room looking out of place in his expensive clothes and dangerous aura. I found the man who approached Thomas, he said quietly.
How?
I have resources. He works for a rival organization. They were sending a message. Stay in line, or the people you care about get hurt. My legs felt weak. What happened to him? He won't be a problem anymore. Lorenzo, what does that mean? He looked at me with flat, cold eyes. The same eyes I'd seen on the plane. The dangerous man underneath the gentle exterior. It means he won't be a problem anymore. Don't ask me for details you don't want to know. I should have been horrified. Should have kicked him out and called the police. Instead I asked, is Thomas safe now? Safer. But not completely safe. Not while I'm in your life. Then what do we do? He moved closer. I can disappear.
Cut all ties.
Make it look like you meant nothing to me. They'll leave you alone. And if I don't want that,
then I stay.
And I protect you both with everything I have. But Elena, you need to understand what that means. My world, my enemies, my violence, all of it becomes yours. I thought about the panic button, about the cooking classes, about the way he knelt down to talk to Thomas, about chemistry and second chances, and the fact that I was standing here at a crossroads that would define everything that came next. Stay, I said. Stay. Teach me how to protect myself better. Teach me what to watch for. But don't disappear.
Why?
Because you're trying to be better. And I want to see who you become when you get there. Something broke in his expression. Vulnerability I'd never seen before. He closed the distance between us and cupped my face with both hands. You're either the bravest woman I've ever met or the most foolish. Can it be both?
He laughed.
Actually laughed. Then he kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate and fierce and full of everything we'd been holding back for weeks. I kissed him back with the same intensity, grabbing his shirt, pulling him closer. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. This is insane, I whispered. Completely. I have a 6-year-old son sleeping in the next room. I know. And your enemies just tried to threaten him. I know. And we're doing this anyway? He pressed his forehead against mine. Only if you want to.
I did want to.
God help me, I did. We go slow, I said. For Thomas. And we're smart about this. Agreed. And you promise me you're really trying to be better. Not just pretending. I promise. I swear on everything I have. I'm done being the man I was. I believed him. Maybe I was naive. Maybe I was setting myself up for devastation. But I believed him. We spent the rest of the night talking, making plans. He told me about his enemies, about the power struggle in his organization, about the men who wanted him dead, and the few allies he had left. I told him about my training, about what I remembered from the military, about how I could help protect us if he taught me more. When he finally left at 2 a.m, the security guards were still outside. He'd arranged for them to stay in rotating shifts until things settled down. I locked the door behind him and checked on Thomas. Still sleeping peacefully. Still innocent. Still protected from the chaos I'd invited into our lives. I climbed into bed and stared at the ceiling, touching my lips where Lorenzo had kissed me. Everything had changed tonight. There was no going back. And the terrifying part was I didn't want to go back. I wanted to see where this impossible thing led, even if it destroyed me, especially if it saved me. The next 6 weeks were the most intense of my life. Lorenzo wasn't joking about teaching me to protect myself. 3 mornings a week, before Thomas woke up, I met him at a private gym he owned across town. The kind of place that didn't advertise. Just an unmarked door in an industrial building and a single room filled with mats and equipment. He taught me things the military never covered. How to disarm someone with a knife. How to identify threats in a crowd. How to move through spaces without drawing attention. How to hurt someone badly enough that they stayed down. Your military training made you disciplined, he said during our 4th session, circling me on the mat. But it taught you to fight fair. Fair gets you killed in my world. So teach me to fight dirty. He smiled. That's what I'm doing. He came at me fast. I blocked, redirected, went for a takedown. He countered and had me pinned in 3 seconds. You're still hesitating, he said, his face inches from mine. Why? I don't know. Yes, you do. You're afraid of hurting me. He was right. Even knowing this was training, even knowing he could handle himself, some part of me held back. You broke my neck on an airplane, he continued. You didn't hesitate then. What's different now? I care about you now. The words came out before I could stop them. We both froze. He released me and stood up, offering his hand. That's exactly why you can't hesitate. The people who want to hurt you will use that caring against you. They'll make you choose between fighting back and protecting what you love. You have to be willing to do both simultaneously. I took his hand and let him pull me up. Is that what you do? Every day of my life. We kept training. I got better, faster, more willing to exploit weaknesses. He taught me to read body language, to spot surveillance, to memorize exits and weapons in every room I entered. But it wasn't just physical training. He taught me about his world, the politics, the alliances, the unwritten rules that governed organized crime. There are 3 families that matter in this region, he explained one morning over coffee after training. Mine, the Kozlov organization out of Moscow, and the Chin syndicate operating from Hong Kong. We've maintained an uneasy balance for years. And now the Kozlovs think I've gone soft. They're testing boundaries, seeing if they can absorb my territory without triggering a war. The man who approached Thomas? Kozlov soldier. Low level. Disposable. They sent him to see how I'd react. And how did you react? His expression went cold. I made it clear that anyone who threatens you, or Thomas, doesn't just disappear. They suffer first. I should have been disturbed. Instead, I felt safer. We were sitting in his car outside the gym. Early morning light turning everything golden. He reached over and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. "How's Thomas doing?" he asked.
Good.
"Really good, actually. The new therapist you suggested has been amazing." "Dr. Martinez?"
Yeah.
Thomas actually looks forward to sessions now. Yesterday, he made eye contact with her for 5 full seconds. That's huge for him. Lorenzo smiled. Genuine and warm.
I'm blah.
"You funded her program, didn't you? The scholarship that opened up last month." "I don't know what you're talking about, Lorenzo."
Okay, yes.
"But don't make a big deal about it. Kids need good therapy. I can afford it. Simple math." I leaned over and kissed him. Soft and grateful. He made a sound low in his throat and pulled me closer, deepening the kiss until I was practically in his lap. My phone alarm went off. Time to get home before Thomas woke up. "I hate that alarm," Lorenzo muttered against my lips. "Me too. But I have to go." "I know." Neither of us moved for another 30 seconds. Finally, I pulled away and climbed back into the driver's seat. "Same time Thursday?" "I'll be here." I drove home feeling energized and terrified in equal measure. This thing between us was growing faster than I'd planned. Deeper than I'd intended. Lorenzo wasn't just teaching me self-defense. He was integrating himself into every part of my life. And I was letting him. Thomas asked about him constantly now. "Where's Lorenzo?" became a regular question. Lorenzo had started coming to the apartment for dinner twice a week. He'd sit on the floor with Thomas and build elaborate block towers. Listen patiently to rambling stories about dinosaurs. Never pushed for physical contact, but accepted it when Thomas initiated it. Last week, Thomas had fallen asleep against Lorenzo's shoulder during a movie. I'd watched Lorenzo's face transform with something like wonder. Like he couldn't believe this small person trusted him enough to be vulnerable. "He's never done that with anyone except me," I'd whispered. "I'm honored," Lorenzo had whispered back. But not everything was domestic bliss and training sessions. The pressure from Lorenzo's enemies was mounting. He tried to hide it from me, but I could read the tension in his shoulders. The way he checked his phone constantly. The increasing number of late-night calls he took in another room. 3 weeks into our new routine, things escalated. I was working a flight to Boston when my phone started blowing up during boarding. Text after text from Lorenzo. "Don't panic. Thomas is safe. But there's been an incident. Call me as soon as you can." My hands shook as I called him from the galley. He answered immediately. "What happened?" "Someone broke into your apartment while you were gone. Thomas was at therapy with Mrs. Kim. They didn't take anything. Just left a message." "What kind of message?" "A photo. You and me at the park last week. With a red X over your face." The galley tilted. I grabbed the counter to steady myself.
Elena, brate.
"They know where I live. Where Thomas goes to therapy. They're watching us."
Yes.
"Which is why you're not going back there." "What?" "I've already moved your things. You and Thomas are staying somewhere safe until I handle this." "You can't just decide that." "I already did. Mrs. Kim is bringing Thomas to meet you when you land. You're all going to a secure location." "Lorenzo, you're being insane." "I'm being practical. These people want to hurt you to get to me. I'm not giving them that opportunity." I wanted to argue. To insist I could handle myself. To maintain some independence. But the thought of someone breaking into my home, touching my things, threatening my son, made all those protests die in my throat. "Okay," I said quietly. "Okay. Thank you for trusting me." "Do I have a choice?" "You always have a choice. But this is the smart one." The flight to Boston was a blur. I went through the motions on autopilot. Smiled. Served drinks. Helped passengers. All while my mind raced with what this meant. When we landed, Mrs. Kim was waiting at the gate with Thomas. He ran to me immediately.
"Mama."
"We're going on an adventure." I picked him up even though he was getting too big for it. "That's right, baby. An adventure." Mrs. Kim handed me a bag. All his important things. Medication, his weighted blanket, his favorite toys. Lorenzo made me a list. He was very thorough. "Where did he say to take us?" She handed me an address. "He said you'd understand when you got there." The address was in an expensive part of town. Gated community. Security checkpoint. The guard waved us through like he was expecting us. The house was beautiful.
Modern.
Spacious. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a private yard. Far too nice for a safe house. Lorenzo was waiting inside. He'd clearly been there for hours. Coffee cups on the counter. His laptop open. That tired, stressed look I was learning to recognize. Thomas wriggled out of my arms and ran to him. Lorenzo. Big house. Pretty big, yeah. Lorenzo knelt down. "Want to see your room?" "My room, come on." He led Thomas upstairs. I followed with Mrs. Kim. The room was perfect. Blue walls with dinosaur decals. A proper bed with rails. Sensory-friendly lighting. Every accommodation Thomas needed. "When did you do all this?" I asked. "Started preparing it 2 weeks ago. Just in case." "You've been planning this for 2 weeks?" "I've been planning for every contingency since the first time I kissed you." Thomas was already exploring, touching everything carefully. Lorenzo had even remembered to put things at his level. Easy to reach. Easy to control. Mrs. Kim looked overwhelmed. "Mr. Vieri, this is too much." "It's exactly enough." "Elena, can I talk to you downstairs?" I nodded. We left Mrs. Kim helping Thomas organize his toys and went back to the kitchen. Lorenzo pulled me into his arms the second we were alone. Just held me. I could feel his heart racing. "I'm sorry," he said into my hair. "I'm sorry my life is doing this to yours." "It's not your fault. It is entirely my fault. I should have stayed away. Should have left you alone after the plane. Should have protected you by disappearing. And I told you to stay. That was my choice." He pulled back to look at me. "This house is mine. Bought it 3 years ago under a different name. No one knows about it except my most trusted people. You're safe here." "For how long?" "As long as it takes for me to resolve this." "How do you resolve a threat from the Russian Mafia?" His expression went dark. "Carefully. Over the next 2 weeks, I learned what it meant to live in Lorenzo's world fully. The house had security I hadn't noticed at first. Cameras everywhere. Reinforced doors. Panic buttons in every room. 2 guards rotating shifts outside. Another team monitoring remotely. Lorenzo stayed with us most nights, working from the house, taking calls at odd hours in Italian and Russian, coming back to bed tense and distant. Thomas adjusted surprisingly well. He liked the house, liked the big yard, liked that Lorenzo was around more. He'd started calling him Enzo because it was easier to say. "Enzo, watch this," became a constant refrain. And Lorenzo always watched, always praised, always gave Thomas his full attention, even when I could see the weight of everything else crushing him. We fell into a domestic rhythm that felt both natural and surreal. Lorenzo cooked breakfast while I got Thomas ready for the day. We took turns reading bedtime stories. We collapsed on the couch after Thomas was asleep and held each other in exhausted silence. But underneath it all, tension was building. I'd catch Lorenzo staring at nothing, jaw clenched. He'd disappear for hours and come back with scraped knuckles or a new bruise. He stopped telling me where he went. "I'm handling it," became his standard response. "Let me help." "You help by staying safe." "I'm not helpless, Lorenzo. You trained me yourself." "I trained you to defend yourself, not to walk into war zones." "What's the difference if the war zone comes here?" He didn't have an answer for that. 3 weeks into staying at the house, something changed. Lorenzo came home at 2 a.m. I heard him in the kitchen and went downstairs. He was leaning against the counter, head in his hands, shoulders shaking. I'd never seen him cry. "Lorenzo." He looked up. His eyes were red, devastated. "I killed someone tonight." The words hung in the air between us. "Okay," I said carefully. "You should be horrified. Are you okay?" "Did you hear what I said? I killed someone. With my own hands. He was Kozlov's nephew. This is going to start a war." I moved closer. "Did you have a choice?" He had information about this location. About you and Thomas. He was coming here tomorrow with the team. I couldn't let that happen. "Then you did what you had to do." Elena, you don't understand what this means. Kozlov will retaliate. It's going to get bloody. I've tried to avoid this for months, but now it's unavoidable. I took his hands. They were shaking. Then we face it together.
No.
I'm sending you and Thomas away. Out of the country. Somewhere he'll never find you. Absolutely not. Elena, be reasonable. I am being reasonable. You think running makes us safe? You think Kozlov stops looking just because we're in another country? He has resources. Connections. The only thing that protects us is you. I can't protect you if I'm dead. The bluntness of it hit me like a punch. You're not going to die. You don't know that. Neither do you. So we prepare. We stay smart. We use everything you've taught me. But we don't run. He pulled me into his arms and held on like I was the only thing keeping him anchored. I don't deserve you. Probably not. But you're stuck with me anyway. He laughed. Broken and exhausted. How did this happen? How did a flight attendant who broke my neck become the most important person in my life? Chemistry, I said, echoing that first cooking class. We have good chemistry. He kissed me then, desperate and grateful and terrified. I kissed him back with everything I had, trying to pour strength into him, trying to make him believe we could survive this. When we finally broke apart, he pressed his forehead to mine. I love you. I need you to know that. Whatever happens, I love you. I love you too. It was the first time either of us had said it out loud. The truth of it settled into my chest like coming home. I won't let anything happen to you or Thomas, he said. I swear it. I know. But as we stood there in his kitchen at 2 a.m., holding each other against the weight of everything coming, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were standing on the edge of something terrible. Something that would test every promise we'd made. And I had no idea if love would be enough to survive it. The next morning, everything looked different. Lorenzo was already up when I came downstairs, sitting at the kitchen table with 3 other men I'd never seen before. They stopped talking the second I appeared. Elena, this is Marco, Dimitri, and James. They're my most trusted people.
Marco handles logistics.
Dimitri is head of security. James is my lawyer. They nodded at me, assessing, trying to figure out why their boss had a woman and child living in his secret house. Kozlov made contact an hour ago, Lorenzo continued. He wants a meeting. Neutral ground. Tomorrow night. It's a trap, Marco said in accented English. Obviously. But we have to respond. Ignoring him is worse. So, what's the play? Dimitri asked. Lorenzo looked at me. Then, at his men. We set our own trap. He thinks I'm weakened by caring about civilians. We use that assumption against him.
How?
I asked. He smiled. Cold and calculating. The dangerous man underneath the gentle exterior. By making him think he's already won. The plan was simple. Too simple, which made me nervous. Lorenzo would meet Kozlov at a warehouse near the docks. Neutral ground, supposedly. Both sides could bring 3 men. No weapons allowed, which was a joke because everyone would have weapons. You're using yourself as bait, I said. We were in his office.
The door closed.
Thomas was downstairs with Mrs. Kim watching cartoons. That's the job. What if something goes wrong? Then Dimitri gets you and Thomas out of the country within 6 hours. Everything's arranged. Lorenzo. He pulled me close. I've been doing this my whole life. I know how to handle men like Kozlov. Then why do you look so worried? He kissed my forehead. Because I have something to lose now. That changes everything. The meeting was set for 8 p.m. the next day. Lorenzo spent the entire day preparing, making calls, moving money, setting up contingencies. I watched him transform from the man who built block towers with Thomas into something colder, more focused. I need you to promise me something, he said that evening. We were alone in the bedroom. Thomas was already asleep. What? If things go bad tomorrow? If Dimitri tells you to run, you run.
No hesitation. No trying to help me.
You take Thomas and you disappear. Lorenzo. Promise me, Elena. This is the only thing I need from you. I looked at his face, saw the fear underneath the determination. I promise. He held me all night. Neither of us slept much. The next day crawled by. I tried to maintain normalcy for Thomas. Made breakfast. Played games. Read stories. But every time I looked at the clock, my stomach twisted. Lorenzo left at 6 p.m. Kissed Thomas goodbye. Told him to be good for Mama. Then pulled me aside. I'll call you when it's done. Be careful. Always. He kissed me hard. I love you. I love you too. Then he was gone. Marco and 2 other men with him. Dimitri stayed behind with another team to watch the house. I put Thomas to bed at 7:30. Read him 3 stories. Kissed his forehead. Tried not to let him see my hands shaking. Mama scared, he asked. Just tired, baby. Enzo coming back?
Yes.
He's coming back. I hoped I wasn't lying. At 8:15, Dimitri knocked on my bedroom door. His face was grim. Something's wrong. Lorenzo's not responding. Neither is Marco. My blood went cold. What does that mean? It means the meeting went bad. We need to move.
Now. No.
We wait. Give him more time. Elena, we have protocols. I don't care about protocols. We wait. We argued for 3 minutes.
Then my phone rang.
Unknown number. I answered. Hello. Ms. Ward. My name is Alexei Kozlov. The voice was smooth, accented, amused. I have something that belongs to you. The world tilted. Where's Lorenzo?
Alive. For now.
But that depends entirely on your cooperation. What do you want?
You.
Tonight. Come alone to the address I'm about to text you. If you bring anyone, if you call the police, if you do anything except exactly what I say, I kill Lorenzo Vieri slowly and make you listen. How do I know he's alive? There was a shuffle. Then Lorenzo's voice, strained with pain. Elena, don't. Take Thomas and run. Lorenzo. Kozlov came back on. You have 1 hour. Come alone. He hung up. I stood there, phone in my hand, everything Lorenzo had taught me screaming that this was a trap, that going would get me killed. But they had him. Dimitri was already on his phone, mobilizing teams. We'll get him out. But you need to leave now with Thomas.
No.
Elena, this is exactly what Lorenzo told you not to do. I don't care. Text me the address Kozlov sent. Get your teams in position around it. But I'm going. He'll kill you. Maybe. Or maybe he wants something else. Either way, I'm not leaving Lorenzo to die. I changed quickly. Dark clothes.
Boots.
Strapped a knife to my ankle the way Lorenzo had taught me. Dimitri argued the entire time, but finally gave in. We'll be close, he said. You get in trouble, you make noise. We'll come. Take care of Thomas. If something happens to me and Lorenzo, you get him somewhere safe. Promise me. I promise. I kissed Thomas's sleeping forehead. Tried to memorize his face in case this was the last time. Then I drove to the address Kozlov had sent. It was the same warehouse where the meeting was supposed to happen. Smart. Lorenzo's team had already swept it for threats. Kozlov knew that, and used it anyway. The parking lot was empty. No cars.
No guards visible.
Just me and the darkness. I got out slowly, hands visible. The knife pressed against my ankle was the only weapon I had. The warehouse door opened. A man emerged.
Tall. Broad.
The same build as the man who'd approached Thomas. Inside, he said in Russian accented English. I walked in. The space was massive. Empty except for a single light in the center illuminating 2 chairs. Lorenzo was tied to one. Blood on his face. His shirt torn. But alive and conscious. Elena, no, he said when he saw me. His voice was ragged. Shut up, said a new voice. Alexei Kozlov stepped into the light. He was older than I expected. 50s. Gray at the temples. Expensive suit. He looked like a businessman, not a killer. But his eyes were dead. Ms. Ward, thank you for coming. Let him go.
Soon.
First we talk. He gestured to the empty chair.
Sit. Iset.
For men appeared from the shadows. All armed. All watching me. You've caused me significant problems, Kozlov said. Lorenzo was manageable before you. Predictable. He understood the rules. Then you broke his neck on an airplane, and somehow that made him think he could break all the other rules too. That's not my fault, isn't it? He's been shutting down operations, refusing contracts, trying to go legitimate. All because he wants to be worthy of you.
Kozlov laughed.
It's almost romantic. What do you want? I want Lorenzo to remember who he is. A killer. A criminal. A man who built his empire on violence. Not this soft version trying to play house with a widow and her broken child. Rage flooded through me. Don't talk about my son. Or what? You'll break my neck too. He smiled. I know about your military training. About the self-defense Lorenzo's been teaching you. About how you think you're dangerous now. He pulled out a gun. Pointed it at Lorenzo's head. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to watch me kill the man you love. Then my men are going to kill you. And tomorrow, I'm going to find your son and make sure he disappears into the system where no one will ever find him. Lorenzo's little experiment in redemption ends tonight. Lorenzo was fighting against the ropes. Kozlov, please. She has nothing to do with this. She's everything to do with this. You changed because of her. You die because of her. Perfect symmetry. Kozlov's finger tightened on the trigger. Everything Lorenzo had taught me flooded back. Fight dirty. Use their assumptions against them. Never hesitate when lives are on the line. I moved, kicked the chair backward, and rolled. The knife was in my hand before I finished the roll. Came up throwing. It hit Kozlov in the shoulder. Not lethal, but enough to make him drop the gun. His men rushed forward. I grabbed the fallen gun and fired. Once.
Twice.
Center mass like I'd been taught. 2 men dropped. The other 2 had their weapons up. I dove behind a crate as bullets tore through the air where I'd been standing. Lorenzo was screaming my name, fighting his ropes with renewed desperation. I fired blind around the crate. Heard someone curse in Russian. Footsteps running. Then silence. I waited, breathing hard, listening. A hand grabbed my ankle and yanked. I went down hard. One of Kozlov's men on top of me, hands around my throat. I remembered Lorenzo's lesson. Pressure points. Vulnerable spots. I jabbed my fingers into his eyes. He screamed and loosened his grip. I brought my knee up hard into his groin, rolled him off me, and hit him with the gun until he stopped moving. Then I heard the click of a safety being released. I turned. Kozlov had retrieved a backup weapon, blood soaking his shoulder. Face twisted with rage. You stupid girl, he said.
The gun was pointed at my chest.
Too far to reach him. No cover between us. This was it.
Anna.
Lorenzo's voice, broken with anguish. I looked at him, tried to memorize his face. I love you.
No.
The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space. But I didn't feel anything. Kozlov looked down at his chest, at the bloom of red spreading across his expensive suit, then up at me with confusion.
He fell.
Behind him stood Dmitri with a smoking rifle. Marco beside him. 6 more men pouring through the door. You took too long to make noise, Dmitri said. We came anyway. I collapsed. Just sat down hard on the concrete floor as adrenaline drained out of me. Marco was cutting Lorenzo loose. Lorenzo immediately crawled to me, pulled me into his arms. You promised you'd run, he said.
Elite.
You could have died. So could you. He held me so tight I could barely breathe. Both of us shaking. Both of us covered in other people's blood. Is Kozlov dead? I asked. Dmitri checked. Yes. Good. Lorenzo pulled back to look at me. You killed 2 of his men. I know. How do you feel? I thought about it. About taking lives. About the weight of that. About what it meant. I feel like I protected what's mine.
He kissed me.
Hard and grateful and desperate. We need to move, Marco said. Kozlov's people will know something went wrong. This location is compromised. Lorenzo helped me stand. We walked out of the warehouse together. Into the night. Into whatever came next. I'd killed people tonight. Walked into a trap. Fought for my life and won. And I'd do it again. For him. For Thomas. For the life we were trying to build. The innocent woman from the airplane was gone. This version of me was stronger. Harder. Dangerous. And I was okay with that. The next 48 hours were chaos. Kozlov's death sent shockwaves through the criminal underworld. His organization fractured immediately. Different factions fighting for control. Some wanted revenge. Others saw opportunity. Lorenzo and I didn't go back to the safe house. Too exposed. Instead, we moved to a property I didn't know existed. Rural. Hours from the city. A compound more than a house. Thomas hated it immediately. Too big, he said, clinging to me. Want home. I know, baby.
Just for a little while.
But a little while stretched into a week. Then, too. Thomas's routine was destroyed.
No therapy. No familiar spaces.
Just guards and tension and parents who jumped at every sound. He started having meltdowns. 3-4 times a day. Screaming. Hitting himself. Inconsolable for hours. I held him through each one. Watching my son suffer because of choices I'd made. Because I'd fallen in love with a dangerous man. Lorenzo tried to help, but Thomas wouldn't let him close during meltdowns. Would only accept me. So Lorenzo would stand in the doorway, watching with helpless guilt on his face. This is my fault, he said one night. We were in bed, exhausted. Thomas had finally cried himself to sleep after a 2-hour meltdown. It's Kozlov's fault. Kozlov's dead because of me. His people want revenge because of me. Thomas is suffering because of me. Lorenzo, don't. How long can we live like this, Elena? Hiding. Running. Waiting for the next attack. I didn't have an answer. 3 weeks in, things got worse. Marco came to Lorenzo's office, where we'd been reviewing security footage. His face was grim. We have a problem. Kozlov's second in command, Viktor Petrov, just put out a bounty. 3 million for Elena. 5 million for you. Dead or alive. Lorenzo went very still. When? 2 hours ago. It's already circulating. How many people know about this location? Just our inner circle. Then we have maybe a day before someone talks. Money like that makes people creative.
He turned to me.
Pack Thomas's things. You're leaving. Tonight. Where? I have a contact in New Zealand. Remote property. New identities already prepared. You and Thomas disappear. Completely. What about you? I stay. Handle Petrov.
Clean this up.
Absolutely not. Elena, this isn't negotiable. You're right. It's not. Because I'm not leaving. We argued for an hour. He tried reason. Then demands. Then begging. Nothing worked. Why won't you just let me protect you? He finally said, exhausted. Because protection doesn't mean separation. It means we figure this out together. There's nothing to figure out. They want us dead. That's simple. Then we make ourselves harder to kill.
How?
I'd been thinking about this. About resources and leverage. About what Lorenzo had told me about his world. The Chun Syndicate. You said they were the third major power. What's their relationship with Petrov? Neutral. They stay out of European conflicts. What if we gave them a reason to choose a side? Lorenzo stared at me. You want to make an alliance with a Chinese crime syndicate. I want to give Petrov more enemies than he can handle. Make him fight on multiple fronts. Stretch his resources. Force him to negotiate or die. That's actually smart. I know. He almost smiled. When did you become a strategist? When I fell in love with a tactician. The Chen connection was complicated. Their leader, Wei Chen, operated out of Hong Kong but had extensive interests in North America. Lorenzo had done business with him before. Respectful but distant. Making this call meant owing favors. Meant deeper entanglement with the criminal world. But we were out of options. Lorenzo made the call. 20 minutes in Mandarin that I couldn't follow. When he hung up, he looked surprised. Wei wants to meet. In person. Tomorrow. That's good, right? Maybe. Or it's a trap. Chen's been trying to expand into European markets for years. This could be his opportunity to eliminate two competitors at once. So we don't go.
No.
We go, but carefully. The meeting was set for a restaurant Wei owned in the city.
Public.
Cameras. Witnesses. Safer than a warehouse. We left Thomas with Mrs. Kim and Dimitri's best team. I hated leaving him, but bringing a child to a meeting with a crime lord seemed worse. The restaurant was beautiful. Traditional Chinese architecture. Red lanterns. The smell of incense and expensive food. We were led to a private room in the back. Wei Chen was already there. Older. Dignified. Everything about him spoke of power held with casual confidence. Mr. Vieri. And you must be Ms. Ward. The famous flight attendant. His English was perfect. British accent. Thank you for meeting with us, Lorenzo said. I was intrigued by your proposal. Alliance against Petrov. Wei poured tea with practiced grace. But I wonder what you offer in return. Access to shipping routes through Italy and Greece. Favorable terms on protection for your interests in 8 European cities. Generous. What stops me from simply waiting for Petrov to kill you and then taking those routes anyway? The fact that Petrov won't stop with us. He's ambitious.
Young.
Reckless. He'll come for your territory next. Wei considered this. You make a fair point. So, we have an agreement? Not yet. I need something else.
Wei looked at me.
Tell me, Ms. Ward. You killed 2 of Kozlov's men. How did that feel? The question caught me off guard. Necessary. Not good. Not powerful.
No.
Just necessary. Interesting. Most people who kill for the first time either love it or break from it. You seem to have done neither. I did what I had to do to protect what's mine. And what is yours? Lorenzo? Your son. Both. And myself. Wei smiled. I like you. You're practical. Lorenzo, this woman is wasted on your organization. She should be running her own. She's running mine, Lorenzo said. She just doesn't realize it yet. I looked at him. He squeezed my hand under the table. Wei stood. Very well. You have my support. I'll send word to Petrov that any action against you is action against me. That should make him reconsider. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This favor will be repaid. When I call, you answer. Understood? Understood. We left the restaurant an hour later with an alliance that felt more like a leash. But at least we had breathing room. Or so we thought. We got back to the compound at 11 p.m. Something was wrong immediately.
Too quiet.
No guards at the perimeter. Lorenzo drew his weapon. Motioned for me to stay behind him. We moved carefully toward the house. The front door was open. Splinters where it had been forced. Inside was a massacre. 3 of Dimitri's men.
Dead.
Blood everywhere. Thomas. I screamed. I ran through the house. Lorenzo right behind me. Every room empty. No signs of struggle upstairs. But no Mrs. Kim.
No Thomas.
In Thomas's room, a note on the bed. 3 million wasn't enough. Now I want 10. You have 24 hours. Come alone to the location below, or I start sending pieces of the child. It was signed with Petrov's symbol. I couldn't breathe.
Couldn't think.
The room was spinning. Lorenzo caught me as my legs gave out. We'll get him back. I swear to God. We'll get him back. He has my son. That monster has my baby. I know. But panicking won't help. We need to think. There's nothing to think about. We pay. We give him whatever he wants. It's not about money. It's about power. He wants me destroyed. Taking Thomas is how he does it. I grabbed Lorenzo's shirt. I don't care about strategy. I don't care about your war. I care about my son. So we pay. We negotiate. We give him anything. Everything. Do you understand?
Yes.
But Elena, we have to be smart about this. Then be smart. Figure it out. Because if anything happens to Thomas, there is no world where you or I survive it. He pulled me into his arms. Let me break. Let me scream and cry and rage. When I finally had no tears left, he held my face in his hands. I will get him back. Whatever it costs. Whatever I have to do. I will bring Thomas home to you. Promise me. I promise. But as we sat there surrounded by death and terror, I couldn't shake the feeling that some promises are impossible to keep, and that we were about to discover exactly how much could be taken from us before we shattered completely. Lorenzo moved with a focus I'd never seen before.
Cold.
Clinical. Every emotion locked away, except the mission. Get Thomas back. He had Dimitri mobilize every resource. Called in favors from contacts across 3 continents. Offered bounties of his own. Within 6 hours we had Petrov's location. An abandoned factory outside the city. Obvious trap. Petrov wanted Lorenzo to come. Wanted this confrontation. I'm going with you, I said.
No.
He has my son. Which is exactly why you stay here. If something goes wrong, someone needs to survive to keep looking. Lorenzo. He grabbed my shoulders. Listen to me. Petrov is expecting me to bring you. He'll have men positioned specifically to grab you. If you're there, you become leverage. You make it harder for me to move. Harder to fight. Harder to get Thomas out. I can't just sit here. Yes, you can. Because Thomas needs at least one parent to come home to. The logic was sound. I hated it, but it was sound. What's the plan? Dimitri's team surrounds the factory. I go in with the money. Make the exchange. Get Thomas out. And if Petrov doesn't honor the deal, then we go to plan B. Which is? His expression went dark. Everyone in that factory dies except Thomas. I should have been horrified by the casual way he said it. Instead, I felt relief. Bring him home, I said. I will. He left at dawn with Marco, Dimitri, and 12 other men. The compound felt empty without him. Just me and 2 guards, and the crushing weight of waiting. I tried to distract myself. Cleaned things that didn't need cleaning. Made food I couldn't eat. Checked my phone every 30 seconds. 2 hours passed. 3.
4.
No word. At hour 5, my phone finally rang. Lorenzo. Do you have him? I answered.
No.
His voice was strained. Petrov didn't show. He sent a lieutenant. Thomas wasn't here. The world tilted. What do you mean he wasn't there? It was a setup. To draw us out. To thin our defenses. Elena, you need to listen carefully. Petrov knows about the compound. He's coming there. Right now. What? Get out. Take the guards and run. I'm 15 minutes away, but that's too long. Lorenzo, I can't just leave. You have to. He doesn't want money. He wants you. This whole thing was about getting me away from you.
I heard it then. Gunfire.
Distant but getting closer. They're already here, I said. Lock yourself in the panic room.
Now.
Don't come out until you hear my voice. The call cut off. I ran to the panic room. A reinforced space in the basement with supplies and communications. Designed for exactly this scenario. The 2 guards were already moving. Weapons drawn. Professional. Get in the panic room, Ms. Ward. What about you? We'll hold them as long as we can.
More gunfire.
Closer. The sound of breaking glass. I ran downstairs. The panic room door was heavy steel. Keypad lock. I punched in the code Lorenzo had made me memorize. Nothing. Tried again. Still nothing. It's not working. One of the guards came running. Tried the code himself. The panel beeped red. Error. Someone changed it remotely. The system's been hacked. Footsteps above us. Voices shouting in Russian. Hide, the guard said. We'll buy you time. He pushed me toward a storage closet. I squeezed inside just as the first man appeared at the top of the stairs. Through the crack in the door, I watched the guards fight. They took down 3 men before being overwhelmed.
Shot. Killed.
I pressed my hand over my mouth to keep from screaming. Heavy boots on the stairs. 6 men. 7. All armed. All searching. Find the woman. One said in accented English. Petrov wants her alive. They spread out. Checking rooms. Getting closer. I had the knife still strapped to my ankle. Against 7 armed men, it was useless. But I wasn't going without a fight. The closet door opened. A man stood there.
Young. Scarred.
He smiled when he saw me. There you are. I lunged with the knife. Caught him in the throat. He went down gurgling. The others heard. Came running. I grabbed the dead man's gun. Fired.
Hit one.
Missed another. Then hands grabbed me from behind. The gun was ripped away. I was thrown against the wall hard enough to see stars. Enough. A new voice. Commanding. Viktor Petrov stepped into view. Younger than Kozlov, but with the same dead eyes. Ms. Ward. Finally. Where's my son? Safe.
For now.
Whether he stays that way depends entirely on your cooperation. What do you want? Lorenzo Vieri's empire. His territory. His resources. His life. I can't give you that.
No.
But he'll give it to me to save you. That's how love works. It makes strong men weak. He pulled out his phone. Dialed. Put it on speaker. Lorenzo answered immediately. Petrov. I have Elena. And I have your heir. Heir.
The boy.
Thomas. Did you really think I didn't know? Everyone knows Lorenzo Vieri is playing father to a broken child. He's not my son, Lorenzo said carefully. But you love him like he is. Along with his mother. So here's my offer.
You. For them.
You surrender to me tonight. Sign over everything you own. And I let Elena and Thomas go. How do I know you'll honor that? You don't. But it's the only chance they have. Silence on the line. I could picture Lorenzo's face. The war between what he wanted and what was smart. Don't do it, I said. Lorenzo, don't you dare. Petrov hit me. Hard enough to knock me down. Lorenzo's voice was raw.
I'm okay.
Don't listen to him. He'll kill us anyway. Petrov kicked me in the ribs. Pain exploded through my side. Stop. Lorenzo shouted. Stop hurting her. I'll do it. I'll give you everything. Just don't hurt them.
Smart man.
You have 2 hours to get here.
Come alone. Come unarmed.
Come ready to die. Petrov rattled off an address. If you're late, I start with the boy's fingers. He hung up. I struggled to breathe through the pain in my ribs. You're going to kill us anyway. Probably. But first I'm going to make Lorenzo watch. Going to show him what weakness costs. He hauled me to my feet. Zip-tied my hands. Pushed me toward the stairs. Move. They loaded me into a van. Drove for 30 minutes. I tried to track the route, but pain and fear made it impossible to concentrate. We arrived at another warehouse. Of course. These men loved their warehouses. Inside, I saw Mrs. Kim tied to a chair. Bloodied but alive. And Thomas. In a cage. Actually in a cage like an animal. Mama, he screamed when he saw me. It's okay, baby. Mama's here. They pushed me into another chair. Tied me down. Thomas was screaming now. Full meltdown. The sound broke something in my chest. Please, I begged. Please let me calm him down. He has a disability. He doesn't understand what's happening. That's the point, Petrov said. I want Lorenzo to hear him screaming when he arrives. For the next 90 minutes I sat there, helpless, while my son had the worst meltdown of his life. Hitting himself. Pulling his hair. Screaming until his voice went hoarse. I talked to him the whole time, trying to soothe him from across the room. But it wasn't enough. Nothing was enough without being able to hold him. Mrs. Kim was crying silently. I met her eyes and tried to convey that it would be okay. But I didn't know if that was true. At exactly 2 hours, the door opened. Lorenzo walked in. Alone. Unarmed. His hands raised. I'm here. Let them go. Petrov smiled. Not yet. First we do this properly. On your knees. Lorenzo knelt. Never took his eyes off me. I'm sorry, he mouthed. I shook my head. None of this was his fault. Petrov pulled out a gun. Pressed it to Lorenzo's head. Everything you own. Sign it over. They brought out papers. Contracts. Lorenzo signed each one without reading. Transferring businesses, properties, bank accounts, everything he'd built over 15 years. Gone in minutes. Good, Petrov said. Now the real fun begins. He moved the gun from Lorenzo's head to point at me. Tell her you love her. One last time. Lorenzo's voice was steady.
Elena.
You made me want to be better. You gave me a reason to try. I love you. Take care of Thomas. Tell him I tried. No, I said.
Lorenzo, no.
It's okay. I'm ready. But Petrov didn't shoot. Instead, he smiled. I'm not going to kill you, Vieri. I'm going to make you watch while I destroy everything you love. Starting with her.
He turned the gun on me.
And that's when everything exploded. The windows shattered. Smoke grenades. Flashbangs. The warehouse filled with chaos. Wei Chen's men poured through every entrance.
Dozens of them.
Professional. Coordinated. Overwhelming. In the confusion, Lorenzo moved. Grabbed Petrov's gun hand. Twisted. The gun fired wide. I was fighting my restraints. Mrs. Kim was screaming. Thomas was lost in his meltdown. Dmitri appeared next to me. Cut my zip ties. We followed Lorenzo. Wei Chen's idea. Get Thomas. He ran for the cage while I stumbled toward my son. Lorenzo and Petrov were fighting hand to hand. Brutal.
No technique.
Just rage. Dmitri got the cage open. I grabbed Thomas and held him tight. Covered his ears. Tried to shield him from the violence. I've got you. Mama's got you. You're safe. He couldn't hear me over his own screaming. But I held on anyway. Lorenzo got the upper hand. Had Petrov on the ground. Hands around his throat. Lorenzo. I shouted. Stop. He looked at me. Eyes wild. He's not worth it. We're alive. Thomas is alive. That's what matters. For a long moment, I thought he wouldn't listen. Thought he'd kill Petrov anyway. But slowly, his hands loosened. He stood. Stepped back. Get him out of here, he told Dmitri. Then he came to us. Wrapped his arms around me and Thomas. We stood there in that warehouse, surrounded by dead bodies and smoke, holding each other like we'd never let go. Thomas was still crying but quieter now, starting to calm in our combined embrace. You came, I said. Always. I'll always come for you. Wei Chen appeared beside us. Touching. But we should leave. Police will be here soon. We left together. Thomas, Mrs. Kim, Lorenzo, and me. Dmitri driving. Wei Chen's convoy behind us. Back at a new safe location, I finally got Thomas cleaned up and calm. Checked him for injuries. He was physically unharmed but traumatized. It would take time to recover. Mrs. Kim had a concussion but would be okay. And I had 3 cracked ribs, but I'd live. Lorenzo stood in the doorway watching me with Thomas. When our eyes met, something passed between us. Understanding. Acceptance. We'd survived. But at what cost? That was the question neither of us could answer yet. 3 days later, Lorenzo called a meeting. Not at a warehouse. Not at a safe house. At a luxury hotel ballroom in the center of the city. What is this? I asked. Trust me. The ballroom filled with people. Criminals and businessmen. Politicians and lawyers. Representatives from every major organization in the region. Lorenzo stood at the front. Calm. Confident. Back to the man who commanded empires. Thank you all for coming, he began. I've gathered you here to make several announcements. First, Viktor Petrov is no longer a concern. He's been handed over to authorities with evidence of his involvement in human trafficking, money laundering, and the murder of 3 federal agents. Murmurs through the crowd. Petrov had powerful friends. This was bold. Second, I'm restructuring my operations. The violent enterprises are done. The protection rackets, the smuggling, the gray market dealings. All of it. I'm going legitimate. The murmurs became protests. Several men stood to leave. Sit down, Lorenzo said. His voice had that edge that made people obey. Because third, I'm offering all of you the same opportunity. Partner with me in legitimate ventures, or find yourself competing with Wei Chen's organization, which has generously agreed to fill any vacuum I leave behind. Wei Chen stood in the back, nodded once. The men sat back down. The world is changing, Lorenzo continued. Law enforcement is getting smarter. Borders are getting tighter. The old ways don't work anymore. We either evolve or we die. I choose evolution. He pulled out a remote.
Clicked it.
The screen behind him lit up with financial projections, business plans, legitimate revenue streams, real estate development, import-export through legal channels, security consulting. These industries are worth billions, and they're completely above board. I'm offering you a piece of that future. For the next hour, he presented a vision of organized crime transforming into organized business. It was brilliant, practical, and coming from anyone else, it would have been laughed out of the room. But Lorenzo had credibility,
Power.
and Wei Chen's backing. By the end, 23 organizations had signed preliminary agreements. It wasn't perfect. Some would betray the agreement. Some would try to go back to the old ways. But it was a start. After the meeting, Lorenzo found me waiting outside. "What did you think?" he asked. "I think you just changed everything." I had good motivation. He pulled me close. "Everything I have, everything I'm building now, it's for you and Thomas. To give you a life where you don't have to hide, where he can go to school and therapy without armed guards." That's a beautiful dream. It's not a dream. It's a plan. And I've never failed to execute a plan. Over the next 3 months, Lorenzo made good on every promise. The violent operations were shut down. Key people were transitioned to legitimate businesses or paid severance.
Some fought back.
Dmitri handled them quietly. Lorenzo's empire transformed. Warehouses became distribution centers for legal goods. Protection money became consulting fees. Smuggling routes became shipping lanes. And through it all, Thomas slowly healed. We'd moved into a real house. Normal neighborhood.
Good schools nearby.
Thomas started at a new school with proper support for his needs. Made friends. Stopped having nightmares. Lorenzo officially moved in with us 6 months after the warehouse. No more hiding. No more pretending. He proposed on a random Tuesday while helping Thomas build a blanket fort. "Marry me," he said. Thomas looked up. "Marry means family?" "Yeah, buddy. It means family." "Good. We're family." Then he went back to the fort like it was settled. I laughed and cried at the same time. "That's your proposal? In a blanket fort? You want something fancier?"
No.
"This is perfect." We got married in a small ceremony 3 months later.
Just close friends.
Mrs. Kim, Dmitri, and Marco. Wei Chen sent an expensive gift and his regrets. Thomas was the ring bearer. He took the job very seriously. Practiced walking down the aisle for weeks. On our wedding day, watching him carefully carry the rings, watching Lorenzo's face light up with pride, I thought about how far we'd come. From a moment of violence on an airplane to this. To family. To love.
To safety.
It hadn't been easy. We'd both been broken and rebuilt. We'd both had to face the worst parts of ourselves. But we'd survived. The reception was small but joyful.
Dancing.
Laughter. Thomas fell asleep on Lorenzo's shoulder halfway through. "I'm going to put him to bed," Lorenzo said. I watched him carry Thomas upstairs. My husband. My son. My family. Mrs. Kim appeared beside me. "You did good, Elena." Did I? Sometimes I still wonder if I made the right choices. You chose love. That's always right. Maybe she was correct. Or maybe I'd just gotten lucky. Either way, I wasn't going to question it anymore. That night, after all the guests left, Lorenzo and I stood on our back porch. Stars overhead. Thomas asleep upstairs. "No regrets?" he asked.
None.
"You?" "Just one." "What?" "I wish I'd been a better man when I met you. Wish you hadn't had to break my neck to get my attention." I laughed. "If you'd been better, we might never have met." I needed someone who understood darkness, who'd been through it and come out the other side. We came out together. Yeah, we did. He kissed me, soft and grateful. Then we went inside, locked the doors, checked on Thomas one more time, and went to bed in our house, in our life, in the future we'd fought so hard to build. It wasn't perfect. There would be challenges ahead, old enemies who resurfaced, new threats to navigate. But we'd face them together. The flight attendant and the Mafia boss. The woman who broke his neck and changed his life. The man who taught her she was stronger than she knew. We'd been through hell, and we'd earned our heaven. 2 years later, life looked completely different. Lorenzo's businesses were thriving, legitimate, profitable. He'd become something no one expected. A respected businessman with a complicated past that people whispered about but couldn't prove. I'd gone back to school, got my degree in child psychology, started working with kids like Thomas who needed advocates who understood their struggles. Thomas was 9 now, thriving in his special school. Still had hard days, but more good ones than bad. He'd started calling Lorenzo Dad 6 months after the wedding. Lorenzo cried the first time he heard it. We'd had another child.
A daughter.
Sophia. 2 years old and fearless in a way that both terrified and delighted us. She's going to give us so much trouble, Lorenzo said, watching her climb furniture she had no business climbing.
She gets it from you? I said.
Definitely from me. Life was beautifully normal. PTA meetings, soccer games, family dinners. The kind of boring routine I'd once dreamed about during those dark months of hiding. But we weren't naive. We knew the past didn't disappear just because you wanted it to. Lorenzo still had security, still took precautions, still maintained relationships with people who operated in gray areas. And I still trained, still stayed sharp, still knew exactly where the weapons were in every room, just in case. On our 3rd wedding anniversary, Lorenzo took me back to the restaurant where we'd met Wei Chen. Why here? I asked. Because this is where we chose to fight instead of run. Where we became partners in every sense. We ordered too much food. Laughed about Thomas's latest obsession with marine biology. Made plans for a family vacation. It was perfect. Then Lorenzo's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his expression changed. What's wrong? Nothing wrong. Just interesting. Wei Chen wants to meet. About what? Didn't say. Just that it's important. We met Wei 2 days later. Same restaurant. Same private room. He looked older. Tired. Thank you for coming, he said. I need your help. Lorenzo and I exchanged glances. With what? My daughter. She's been kidnapped. The people who took her, they're professionals. Connected. They're demanding I withdraw from several territories or they'll kill her. I'm sorry, Lorenzo said carefully. But I'm out of that world. I can't help. I'm not asking you to fight. I'm asking you to investigate. You have contacts, resources, a reputation. If you find her, I'll handle the rest. Wei, I have a family now. I can't put them at risk. Wei looked at me. Ms. Ward, you understand. You have children. If someone took them, wouldn't you want someone like Lorenzo helping you? He was right. I would. Elena, don't, Lorenzo warned. But I was already thinking. What do you know so far? Wei smiled. I knew you'd understand. Over the next hour, he briefed us. His daughter, Lynn, was 23. Smart. Capable. She'd been taken from her university in London 3 days ago. No ransom demand yet. Just threats. I'll look into it, Lorenzo said finally. But I'm not promising anything. And if it gets too dangerous, I'm out. Fair enough. We left the restaurant with a new mission. One we hadn't asked for but couldn't ignore. Are we really doing this? I asked in the car. I don't know. Are we? That girl needs help. And we know how to help. We have 2 children at home. Which is why we'll be careful. Why we'll use everything we learned. But Lorenzo, we can't just walk away from someone in trouble. He was quiet for a long moment. When did we become the people others call for help? The day we decided to be better than our worst moments. He smiled. I love you.
You know that.
I know. I love you too. That night, after the kids were asleep, we sat at the kitchen table with our laptops. Started digging. Using old contacts. Following leads. It felt good. Purpose beyond just survival. Using our skills to help instead of just protect. Are we crazy? Lorenzo asked around midnight. Probably, but we're crazy together. That's all that matters. 3 days later, we had a lead.
A warehouse in Amsterdam.
Low-level operation but connected to bigger players. We passed the information to Wei. He handled it quietly. Lin was recovered safely. He called us personally to say thank you. I owe you both. Anything you need, ever, you call me. Just glad she's safe, Lorenzo said. After he hung up, I looked at my husband. We're going to keep doing this, aren't it? Helping people? Probably. Even though it's dangerous? We'll be careful. We'll be smart. And we'll only take cases that matter. So we're like crime-fighting parents now. He laughed. Something like that. It wasn't what I'd planned when I woke up 2 years ago and boarded that flight to Dubai. Wasn't the life I'd imagined. But it was the life I'd built. With a man who'd been my nightmare before becoming my partner. With children I'd died to protect. With purpose that went beyond just surviving. The flight attendant who broke a Mafia boss's neck. The Mafia boss who learned to be gentle. Together, we'd created something neither of us could have built alone. And whatever came next, we'd face it the same way we'd faced everything else. Together. With love. With strength. With the absolute certainty that we'd been through hell and earned our right to protect others from the same darkness. Our story wasn't over. It was evolving. And I couldn't wait to see where it went next. I hope you enjoyed this journey. If you did, please like this video. Subscribe for more stories about second chances, unexpected love, and finding strength in the darkest moments. Comment below and tell me where you're watching from and what part of Elena and Lorenzo's story resonated with you most. Because everyone deserves a second chance. Everyone deserves to be seen for who they're trying to become, not just who they were. And sometimes, the most beautiful love stories start with breaking someone's neck on an airplane. Thanks for listening. Until next time.